So a lot of middle class Americans think that with this whole quagmire in the Middle East and the Iran war, when Trump is out of office, everything's going to go back to normal. And when I first heard this, it made me laugh because it made me think about the level of delusion that people can be living in without even realizing what's going to happen. And I heard this in one of Professor Jiang's talks. And I really like his work, but there are some things that I disagree with him on, which I'm going to unpack in this video and future videos. But mainly, he said that, okay, when those people find out that everything's not going to go back to normal, they're going to have a nervous breakdown and they're going to lose it. And that's true because I've seen this happen to a lot of people who get disillusioned with something that they did not expect to happen. And so people would rather die than be wrong about something. So either they will destroy their lives because they have a mental, psychological breakdown, or some of them will take their own lives as well, because there's major shifts and changes happening in the economy, in the definition of capitalism, and it's going to affect a lot of businesses, a lot of wealth for people, a lot of capital that people own. So this whole system is being restructured right now. So it is really hard for me and many analysts to imagine that things are going to go back to normal. I believe things are not going to be the same ever. We are in phenomenal times right now, transformative times for the next 100 or so years. So that made me think about the kind of matrix that people live in. And I wanted to make this video to talk about pain as a method of awakening and as a teacher and a guide to wake us up and help us exit the matrix. This is part of my series called Exit the Matrix that I created for software engineers and developers who want to start to take control of their lives, live their lives on their own terms, create the life that they want without sacrificing their freedom and autonomy, and find ways where they can make more income and increase their earnings by working on projects and ideas that they love and feel excited about. For the past 10 years, I've been a senior techie myself, and I've helped a lot of senior techies find better jobs, relocate to other countries, and also start their own businesses. And the idea of pain as a teacher has been a major theme for me in my awakening journey. And I touched on this in my last video, the rupture gate. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it because this is a kind of a complete series that you want to walk through in sequential order. And so I touched on the idea that it all started for me with grief. Grief was the entry point for me into the world of awakening and trying to understand myself better in the world. But every person happens to enter into this world from a different entry point or different gate. Mine happened to be grief. Yours will be different. And to me, the idea of pain, I like to think that the creator or God or the universe, whatever your belief system is, sometimes it chooses to come and knock on our door to wake us up. And I like to think that we're always presented with the choice. I believe no one is immune to pain, like painful events, like traumatizing events, toxic breakups, divorce, maybe losing someone, losing a loved one, losing money, losing their business, losing a job. Those can be very events. And so when these events happen, to me, this is like God coming and knocking on your door and trying to wake you up, like saying, hey, time to wake up. There's more to life than whatever it is that you've been trying to do. But it takes a long time for us to realize that this is a wake-up call. And when this event happens, we are presented with a crossroads. We're presented with a choice. We either become a victim to that pain and that event and make it dictate our life and our actions in that point, or we make a choice to learn from it and turn it into a teacher and a guide so we can progress and grow and overcome whatever challenge or problem that has been presented to us. And so the middle class people example, I think a lot of those people are going to be victims to that incident when things start to break, a lot of people are talking about the break in the banking system, and there's a whole crisis that's going to happen where a lot of people are going to lose their capital. This is very likely to happen. And, they're encouraging people to buy gold and land, which I am doing, by the way, because I truly believe that this is very likely to happen. And so a lot of people who have not been prepared to that reality will just choose to be victims or refuse to accept it even, and thus take their own lives. I've been very close to be that person as well. So what does it mean to make a choice to learn from the pain? So this is where I get to tell you about my story, because I was very close to be that person who refuses to participate in reality anymore, and I almost took my own life. And that's a continuation from the story that I mentioned last time about 2014 when I lost my cousin, I lost my granddad. I wasn't able to be with my family, and I went through a toxic breakup as well. So all of this put me in a very dark and difficult mental psychological state. And so I became unable to differentiate between reality and imagination. But the worst of it is I started to have an ideation about ending my own life and taking my own life. And that was probably one of the darkest moments in my life, because it was the first time for me out of my country, out of my home, away from my family. I had to face all that by myself. And then I started having these ideas, and I had no idea what to do. Finance was limited, choices were limited, limited options. So it was a very dark time for me. And so I was being presented with that crossroads, right? So if I had taken action on those ideations, my whole journey would have ended then and there, right? But something inspired me. I think to me, it was my family. It all came down to saying to myself, like, what will this do to my family if I choose to take my own life, to end this journey, to exit, to check out right now from this reality? What will this do to my family? And I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine myself doing this to them, because they had a lot of hope. They saw a lot of hope from me moving to the UK. They had a lot of expectations from that, being the first person to go to uni, the first person to travel and create opportunities abroad for myself and my brothers and my family. So there was a lot at stake there. And I was like, I'm not going to take this away from them. I'm not going to kind of destroy this hope for them. So that's what made me choose to start learning from my pain instead of letting it destroy me. And that's what I started reading, Think and Grow Rich, learning about psychology, but then going deeper into the science of quantum physics and what are the mechanics of creating our own reality. And in future episodes, I'm going to give you more concrete examples on this. We're going to talk about the destruction of your current reality and rebuilding a new reality where you truly can see how you create your own world and the life that you want. And I'm going to give you examples from my story of how I did that and how I helped others adapt that as well. But in terms of the pain, so that was really the first experience for me in making that choice. And then later in my journey, I was always presented with the same choice over and over again. So fast forward until, say, 2020 in COVID, when I had to go through divorce. That was a very painful experience for me as well, because my daughter was in the picture, and, I wasn't able to spend as much time as I had wanted with her. And really the whole decision of deciding to get a divorce where you have a child, you're like, okay, do I do this to my child or do I sacrifice? And to me, the choice was, okay, what kind of father do I want to be for my daughter? Right? So I couldn't imagine myself staying in a relationship that I wasn't happy in and becoming that person, because my daughter would not want that person to be her father, or wouldn't have the life that she wants if I was going to be miserable or depressed in that relationship. So I decided to walk away because of that, because I wanted to be the best version of myself for her. So that's also another example of the choice. But then the pain that sets after that, like the pain of separation, the pain of having to go through that divorce, that's a lot to deal with. But every time I was reminded that, okay, I made this choice for a reason. I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to rise above it. That's where I learned the true meaning of being a man, the true meaning of being a father. And then that theme continues in every event in life. So, where you are right now in your journey, what kind of pain are you experiencing? Is your work not working out for you? Are you in a relationship that's not working out for you? Did you just experience a traumatizing event? Start asking the bigger questions like, why am I even here? What is the meaning of my life? Why did I choose this? Why did I make this choice? Why is this event happening with me? All these questions are good questions because they can lead you to start discovering things. And if you are like me, you like reading books, start reading the books that feel interesting to you, podcasts, learn from the teachers that inspire you. I believe every person has a personal kit for who they learn from and what they learn from. So start discovering that for yourself. Start building your own personal kit because no one's going to come and build it for you. So that's really the takeaway from today is start asking the bigger questions, and it's okay to ask those questions. Really, the most differentiating factor in making the right choices is having the courage and not being afraid to ask the bigger questions like, hey, what if my whole life is a mess? What if I fucked up, What if I led myself to be in total chaos? Okay, I gotta accept that reality and just pick myself up, dust myself up, and move on from there. So you gotta be courageous. You gotta have the courage to ask the big questions and stare those nasty facts about your life right dead in the eyes, and you got to face the music, and then you can work from there. Because as long as you're trying to avoid things and trying to beat around the bush, your life is going to be one unfortunate event after another, and you ain't going to know where you're headed or what is it that you need to do. So let me know what things you are facing, what questions are not making sense for you, and I can help you. And I will see you on the next episode.